let's get to the main stage right here. I got to admit, Rob Delph is here. He's the CEO of Fabric, so he's going to start it off. Are you going to introduce our speakers, or am I going to do that? You can? No, I'd like to do it. Okay. Tom Gennari is here, and you are, your Chief Data Officer. I didn't look at the titles before. And Laura Ghisiglieri, you're here too. Thank you both for being here. We're excited about this. This better not be a wimpy round of applause because you're tired. So how about giving these folks a huge round of applause for the AWS Theater? Yay! Take it away, kids.
Well, thank you so much. It was quite a warm welcome. I'm here. I'm going to be really quick. This is a very selfish thing to introduce my new colleagues. Fabric recently acquired BB Media as part of our portfolio of products, and I couldn't be happier. And I just wanted to do a quick bit on who Fabric is and the products that we have. So underneath the Fabric umbrella, we have our Studio product, which is really a first of its kind software as a service title master. So when you're acquiring titles or authoring them for the first time, it's a great place to not only contain all that content, but interface it across your supply chain. The next component is a tried and true loved product called Zytec, which is a scheduling operations media work order platform. So when we have all of our titles, we can send them through the media operations platform. And then we have our two data products. So Origin is a very robust title master. This is the thing that will tell you everything you need to know about a film or a television series in order to distribute it, whether that's artwork or synopses or genres or keywords or trivia, almost anything. And with the latest edition, which is BB Media, which you're going to hear all about now from Tom and Laura, is really building in the supply and demand information related to each one of those titles. And so our strategy across all these four is really bringing the data back, making informed decisions about your title catalog, and then deciding what to distribute. So it's all starting to come together. It's really exciting. That's all I got. So welcome, Tom and Laura.
Thank you, Rob. I'll go back to the first slide with the title of the presentation, Streaming Datagazing. So, for thousands of years, humankind has been looking at the stars to know where they were, no one looked up. It's like, yeah, there's nothing up there, But we've been looking to the stars to understand where we are and where are we headed, okay? So to us, BB Media, now Fabric, we've been doing data since like forever. And to us to understand where we're at and where we're headed, of course, it's all about the data, okay? So, we're pretty smart people, but we are always going back to what happened before and what's happening now in order to obviously understand what's going to happen next. So this very simple, overly simple chart is showing us the basics of the media and entertainment value chain back in like the 70s, okay? We had producers, over-the-air broadcast channels, a TV set, and the user. That was that. Then what happened over the next few years is that we made this a bit complicated with pay TV channels, distributors, and then we made it yet a bit more complicated with premium packages, with more devices being a part of like how to distribute and get eyeballs, and with other business models, including like TV app. No one is talking about TV everywhere anymore, but it was a big chunk of the business like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, SVOD, TVOD, but we never stopped. Then we're bundling with telecommunication companies, other packages. And then what do you know? Guilds are on strike. They want their slice of the pie. And then we come up with AVOD too. But we're not stopping. We're not ever stopping. We continue to make it more complicated. So we're not talking about, ad-supported, subscription on demand. We're talking about fast. And what's important here is we're not making this any easier. We constantly talk about like D2C and how internet with the D2C was going to make things more simple, but we're not making it any simple, okay? This is getting more complicated by the day. So how did we get here? And what is the penetration of these business models is something that we constantly track with global surveys. This is one of the data sets that we always keep up to date. That is, who's using streaming services around the world and what are the business models being used. So when we look at the main regions around the world, we have managed to lure all the audiences and subscribers into this mayhem of an ecosystem that we called, streaming, media, and entertainment. And we have achieved amazing penetration as a service. So 85% of USA and Canada. It is EMEA. We're doing just like South Africa, in Africa, but the rest of Europe we cover very well. We have 79 penetration of streaming services in EMEA, and LATAM is a bit lower. APAC, 75%. Now, this is for everything streaming. Every business model is taken into account here. So this is pretty good, okay? And then we have like layers of people subscribing to more than one service, or people using more than one AVOD streaming service, or people using FAST. So we try to monetize depending on who's the subscriber, how much money they've got. And it's like, okay, these guys can pay the premium package and they can pay the ad-supported package. They cannot pay anything. So they're, just like fast streaming services. And we've become very good at that. So who's winning this race? Well, you got your usual suspects. You have like Netflix, Prime Video. In China, of course, it's Tencent Video. We have some local players, especially in APAC. But you see a lot of red over there, okay? So how did this happen? And if we are stargazing, data gazing, how did this happen? You could arguably say that, hey, Netflix, they're the vision, they're geniuses. But that's not it. I mean, of course, they're geniuses and the vision is amazing. I love the shows, okay? I'm a subscriber, of course, I am. But how this came to be, every participant in the industry made this happen too. I have a story. This was like 2012, and Netflix was just being launched in Latin America. And we have I cannot say the name, but one of the biggest content producers and distributors globally was like, Tom, what do you know about these guys called Netflix? Because they're buying everything that we've got. And back then, 2012, okay, they were just being launched and expanding globally. And to us, it was like, well, this is kind of scary. You're telling me that you're selling everything that you've got to this streaming service that is growing like super fast. But hey, you also have your own pay TV channels. So this is kind of scary. You sure you want to do this? And they're like, yes, they're paying up front. They're buying everything. So, we were like, you should watch out. 2012, okay? Time goes by and, all of a sudden Netflix rules the world. So we will now talk about like why Netflix, what happened in the meantime between 2012 all the way to 2025. But keep in mind that as an industry, we generate every part of the value chain is headed towards we are giving content, we are giving functionalities, we're giving users, we're making partnerships happen. And while we do that, we give power to certain participants in the industry. So this doesn't happen. It's just not serendipity. It is not just like some genius vision, but a lot of things need to happen in order to one company dominate the streaming landscape like this. Closer? I could hear myself like too high over here. Okay, sorry. So why Netflix? Laura will take it from here, and keep in mind, in order to understand what's going to happen next, we need to look at what happened in the past. And we will come back to that later. Okay.
So why Netflix, why we saw those red lines in the map, and why he's everywhere. So that's one we to talk now. So as Tom showed, Netflix launched in the USA in 2007, but then it was when it reached its milestone with the original series House of Cards, when they continued their global expansion. Now they are in more than 190 different countries, all among regions, and it's that they've been adapting their strategy, their revenue models, and since the beginning they've been a subscription service, but we can see that they've been trying with interactive video games. They launched their ad-supported plan for users, and that's available in more than 10 countries now. The question is, are they going to continue growing in the ad space, something that they mentioned in the past, that's not an option, but now they are trying that. They are also trying to fight against account sharing with their extra member plan. So it's important to take Netflix as an example, as a benchmark of the industry. And since, of course, Tom mentioned they've been a pioneer and they have that advantage and they received all these titles from all the players, but they've been evolving and adapting to different strategies. So according to their library, that's what's also it's a very strength from Netflix, from the users. We can see that they've been adapting the productions that they show to the users. So at the beginning, most of the content was from the US, but now we can see that it's split among different countries of production, being the UK at second place, also Japan, France, Korea, and we can see that they've been adapting also the titles that they've been offering. So in 2020, we can see that most of the titles they've been showing were licensed from third parties, and that continue growing and expanding the offer they had. But at some point they say, okay, now it's our turn to keep our original productions. And they can see that, for example, in 2024, that line changed, and we can now find more original productions from Netflix rather than content from other companies. So it's important to think that, well, what are we going to do with the next fast channels? Are we continue giving them the power to have more content, and we're pushing everything to someone else to have that power as Netflix received at the beginning? Or what are we interested in doing now? So original productions are taking good importance in people's minds. So we can see that Netflix has nowadays more than 5,000 different original movies and series around the world. We can see how those titles are important for users. So in the first quarter of 2025, we found that Squid Game and American Prime Bell were among the top 5 most demanded series out there. And Netflix is the first platform with more interesting originals for the audience, followed by Prime, Max, Hulu, Disney. And in the US, we can see that 62% of its library, it's from original content. We can see that 9 out of 10 households see originals as a value they really value in the different streaming services. So it's quite similar in the different countries. But for example, in APAC, that's the number one most valued attribute among users. So if you have a streaming service and you want to really keep the audience, you can still think that content is still king, that it's important, and that you should also give attractive content on, and not just be one more offering the same, but also offering a unique experience for the audience. And then regarding the libraries, we can see that the quantity and quality of content, it's remaining something why people value the libraries and why they are after the shows and movies they want to watch in a platform, and what will keep the audience engaged over there. And promoters are really interested in sharing recommendations with the word of mouth about content variety updates that they have and how frequently they update the catalog, so they can find new movies, new series, and they don't just see the same content in the catalog every time they enter the system. And then comparing the UX, we can see that in the Netflix case, for example, audio and subtitles are one of the main features the audience is satisfied with. So nowadays that content is traveling more than ever. It's very important to work on localization, to offer titles in the original languages, and also translated, dubbed, and subtitled to all the different regions. So if you want to be global and you want to be there in different countries, you should also adapt your offer and your content according to what the audience is looking for. And then download speed is also something that they really value. So you want a robust platform for the users to keep watching there. And then Also, search and discovery is something that we all know is still work that all the players should do. So we can see that if they want to find a new job, a new series, a new movie, it's not even more like just the word of mouth and recommendations from your friends or your family. The UX is playing a very important role nowadays. So how the recommendation engine works and how the companies can work with metadata to improve these recommendation systems, it's crucial for the users to find what they really want. So nowadays we can see that platforms has lots and lots of titles, but how can we find them? It's something that everyone should work on and consider the good examples of Netflix, like recommending other categories and sections for every user and how they can change them according to the user that is navigating in the platform. So this is Netflix. This is just a few of the data that we have to explain a little more about what they do. We all know that Netflix is one of the main players, but the idea here is to think, well, all these features of Netflix are making them still a big player, but all of the players out there, all the runner-ups can work on this stuff to also lead the streaming world and keep growing and keep growing and keep the audience engaged. So now I'm going to go back to Tom, who will continue showing more data.
Okay. Now this high. Okay. Thank you, Lau. And, so something that's worth mentioning, all this data that Lau just presented, you could think that it was just like a one-time survey or consultancy job we did. No, actually, this is always up-to-date information that we keep on surveying. All the catalogs, all the originals, all the, trends in user preferences. This data is always up-to-date in our services. So it's not like a one-time thing, that we're doing. And we're doing this for every streaming service in the world, which is rather unique. If you're into data, this is absolutely unique, in fact. Okay, but that being said, what about the runner-ups? Okay, because yet again, Netflix being the leader globally in streaming and, in particular in subscription video on demand, the industry has been, participating in distributing the titles, licensing it to Netflix. But whom else are we giving the content, the power, the partnerships? So when you understand that, it's like, well, yeah, we know that Prime Video is doing a great job. There are other players globally. We do not have time to go through every single one of them. But you have to understand, this is not just them with a great vision. This is also the rest of the industry participating in making those titles available, helping them with partnerships. And it's a win-win situation. We have, yesterday we gave a presentation in particular about partnerships in a panel, and partnerships are really helpful for driving users, subscribers, and also for retention. So when you start to look at what's happening in the entire sky, you really start to see patterns in all of this when we see what's happening in other regions in the world and with the other main players. Now, of course, we have to drill down this by business model. So depending on the region, you will see that in APAC, we have subscription is the main business model. In UCAN is the same thing. In EMEA, we have more free with ads. This goes back to how that the EMEA region was shaped around the media and entertainment industry, which was a big difference to the USA and to Latin America too. And in Latin, we also have a higher penetration for subscription. But what is worth mentioning is live streaming in its transition of like linear, in fact, linear content is now transitioning to streaming to online too, with connected TVs being like the main device for this. And we keep track of for every region in the world, these numbers are growing year over year. And people are saying, yes, I usually watch content, linear content online, not so much in USA and Canada, EMEA, and in Latam, this is where it's growing the fastest. So we see this as a big trend. And a lot of the conversations and participants here, you might be hearing a lot about like connected TV trends and fast. So when you start to connect the dots, you understand, okay, so whom are we giving the power to now in terms of like putting content out there and helping them drive viewers and eyeballs. But at the same time, those companies will have more and more bargain power eventually. So this is where you need to look at, okay, what's going to happen in the next few years. You can really understand when you connect the dots with current data. Now, what titles are being distributed across all of these business models? I really like this chart. We love drama, okay? Everyone loves drama. Everyone loves comedy. Everyone likes romance and action. But when we see how this has been evolving since 2020 all the way to 2025, and how many titles we're making available throughout every business model at a global scale, this is incredible. These are unique titles, by the way. So we're not counting like the same titles, on every streaming service. This is unique titles being made available globally on every business model. And this is incredible. Now, we talk to a lot of content distributors, IP owners, as part of what we do in data. What title do you think is the most distributed title globally? Like, think. Does anyone want to throw an idea? What is the most distributed title globally? Which one? Squid Games? Well, no, that's a Netflix original. So, I mean, it's all over the world, but it's not like the most distributed one because it's, exclusive to Netflix. Another guess? Friends? Well, that's a tough one too. It's out there in some transactional business models, but it's mostly like Max, Well, here it is. Too Fast, Too Furious. Yeah. And I mean, this is, according to GPT, this is one of the worst Fast and Furious movies, okay? I mean, Vin Diesel is not even in there. Family. He's not even in there, Well, there you go. So if you have a good content strategy and a good distribution, you can still achieve being the number one most distributed title. And we're monitoring 1.5 million unique titles distribution. But how does it work? Well, you need a good distributor partner, first of all. But this is where, it's important. Mostly subscription business models, this is where they're at. And that's good. Transactional, well, it's easier to get into transactional. Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay. It's easier to get into transactional streaming services. But this is where I wanted to get to. Just a teeny tiny tad of free with ads, fast AVODs. So this is free with ads. So even I'm not going to talk about, bad about like Paul Walker, rest in peace. I love the franchise, by the way. I watch all of them, and every single time he's like, why am I watching this? But still a lot of fun, So even with a title that was never the best title globally, you can achieve being the number one most distributed title. Now, we keep track of this, and all you need is to understand the demand you're generating, have a robust strategy when it comes to distribution, because you don't need to be like Friends or Squid Games in order to be the most, like, long tail distribution. And this is something that we constantly talk about with Rob Delp, CEO Fabric, that is, you don't want to have a shotgun to distribute titles. It's like, well, now we have Fast and, AVOD. So, and you can easily put your titles on there. So you just shotgun, boom, and your title is all over the place. I mean, you could do better. Being the number one most distributed title, it does not necessarily need to be on Fast. Well, this is not going back. It's only going forward. So it's totally fine. But you can still achieve an amazing distribution with business models that monetize better. You just need a proper distribution strategy. We keep track of all the demand of every single title globally too. This is always up to date. It's part of what Lab presented. So it's also like, something that we constantly do, keeping track of every title demand at a global scale. And so to wrap up, what's next? We have been talking about business model penetrations, market shares, title demand, user preferences, and how as an industry, we're now distributing titles mostly and, talk about trends with connected TVs, with fast AVOD, and how this can be a bit dangerous. Going back to why Netflix? Well, mainly because a lot of content distributors were like, well, they're buying everything, so you might as well distribute that too. But at the same time, you gave a lot of power to that particular player. So if you had to guess in this heck of a value chain, and this is how just how the titles flow. But of course, every company here is part of this value chain too. So a lot of moving pieces. But who are we now giving a lot of content to? It's now one of the newest members of this chart, that is smart TVs, connected TVs. And, let's phrase that as operating systems. Okay. And they're also coming after a part of slice of this pie of the revenue, subscriptions, ad revenue, ad inventory. And we're like crazy, like putting, some data on smart TV penetration. We saw this coming since 2014, 2015, when we started doing the surveys globally. We already knew that smart TV was going to become the number one device globally. We didn't foresee this heck of a operating system war that happened afterwards, but we already knew that this was going to be the number one device, not digital media receivers like, the Chromecasts or the Apple TV, the device, the set-top box. We saw this coming, and now it's already there. Now, them becoming a part of the revenue share, we did not anticipate this was going to be so strong. And this is where we are now providing a lot of content in the shape of fast channels. This number over here, 44%, is the growth in the amount of channels that we're now monitoring globally. It went from 2,300 in 2024 to 3,400 in 2025. So that's one heck of a growth in just 12 months, 1 year time. And what is the metric that is not that attractive is that fast has a 36 penetration. And this is like a global average. 36% penetration, and which is good. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not growing that fast, first of all. And secondly, and this is Nielsen data for the US, only 4% of the viewership is on fast. And this is where okay, so what are we doing right now? We are providing a lot of content, a lot of channels, but only 4% of the viewership, and it is not growing as fast. So this is where, okay, but we're still providing a lot of content to this connected TVs, operating systems, fast streaming services. And this is where we need to think, where are we headed if we continue down this path? Now, when we look at all the different tiers, ad-supported streaming services, fast or pure AVOD, so free with ads, and we monitor the ad inventories and we monitor the, ad fill rates, numbers are getting better, okay? But we see that we need to create more tiers in order to have the users pay a subscription price that is, according to their pockets. And the ad in surveys show us that people are starting to be, fed up with ads. And as we said in another presentation to the industries, buckle up, because we're just getting started with ad insertions. And, people are starting to get fed up already. So this is where we're headed. And you have to think, when you connect the dots, what's going to happen in the next few years. So with that, I'm going to leave you now. If you have questions, if you need data, if you have enjoyed what we have presented today, please make sure to drop by at the cabana that we have at the back. And we would be, happy to start a conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Sounds great. Tom, Laura, thank you so much. And Rob, thank you for CEO of Fabric getting up here and introducing you guys. Wow. A lot of stuff, right? But, I got to say, buddy, I'm glad you ended up mentioning Amazon Prime, because, we're kind of amongst that thing. So maybe Amazon will just buy Netflix. No, I didn't say that out loud, did I? I hope you're all enjoying yourself. We are at day 3. What a great presentation. It's so odd to see Italians that are animated, right? You did great. You both were wonderful. Thank you so much.